Hey everybody, welcome back to the Rooted Coop channel. Today I have a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about today, and it was sparked by one of the viewers' questions. Have you ever wondered if you could make handmade cold processed soap without investing in some of the expensive equipment like a stick blender? Well, today we're going to dive into that by sharing in our journey and hopefully encouraging those of you who are hesitant to take the plunge into soap making. While some may argue that a stick blender is not expensive, citing prices as low as $20, it is important to recognize that for those who are just starting out, every expense counts. When you factor in the cost of the oils, the lye, the molds, and all of the other necessary supplies, the initial investment can become a barrier for many aspiring soap makers. It's these cumulative costs that can deter individuals from ever taking the first step into this craft. Before I started making soap, I had lots of doubts flood my mind. I questioned whether I would even enjoy the process, if my attempts would yield a successful result, and whether the investment would even be worthwhile. The overwhelming prospect of purchasing all of the things made me hesitant. At the time, there was not a lot of information on some of these alternative methods. Some of the forums provided limited help, often directing me to the you must have a stick blender, you must do this, you must do that. At the time, I wasn't brave enough to try an unconventional method without some guidance. Fast forward to where I am now in my soap making journey. I have gained experience, confidence, and knowledge. I revisited this idea of using an electric hand mixer instead of a stick blender. This time, my curiosity led me to research and experiment. Surprisingly, there wasn't a whole lot of information available on this topic. So, I decided to give it a shot, armed with my knowledge and experience that I had accumulated over time. I figured, why not? Just to try to use what I already had. And if it didn't work out, I was confident enough that I could troubleshoot, adapt, and even rebatch if necessary. However, as a brand new soap maker, you may not have all of the experience and knowledge yet under your belt. I'm sure many of you can relate to the fear of spending hundreds of dollars on equipment for a one-time soap making adventure. That's why I'm here today. I'm going to share my journey and show you that it's possible to make a beautiful soap without all of the bells and whistles. From using a countertop hot process method instead of the crock pot, to opting for an electric hand mixer instead of a stick blender, and even a whisk instead of a stick blender. So I'm going to be showing over the next few episodes some of these different methods that won't compromise the quality of your soap, but that may allow you to dip your toe into the soap making journey without some of the unnecessary expense if you're just wanting to test it out. I have learned to adapt and find solutions and move forward. My first few attempts were very stressful, but they were also incredibly rewarding. So, if you're on the fence about making soap or trying a new approach, take a leap of faith, follow the safety precautions, of course, learn from the experiences of others, gather up your courage, and remember, the first step is often the hardest. So I'm using an electric hand mixer to make this batch of soap. I used my typical recipe of the goat milk and kaolin clay that I normally make. I'm using one color. I'm not trying to do any of the swirls or anything. I'm just doing a standard simple color, fragrance oil, to see if this will even work. I was concerned about the mixer throwing the soap batter. I didn't find that to be too big of an issue. And I was concerned if it would even work or not. So in experimenting with using the electric hand mixer, I found that it did work, albeit with some differences. The process seems to take a little bit longer to come to trace than with the standard stick blender. But there weren't really any other significant issues. I acknowledge that it may not be the most efficient route for everyone, and that's okay. I noticed that it did take a while for this to come to trace, a lot longer than it would have with a stick blender. However, I also did not use any kind of a water discount. I intentionally done that with just a standard recipe with no water discount because I wanted to make sure that it was going to be fluid enough. I didn't know how it was going to behave, so I wanted to give myself a standard batch without the water discount. So, would I recommend this method? It's kind of a mixed answer. Yeah, it worked. It definitely worked. But with the convenience of a stick blender, I think I would prefer the stick blender. But can you do it this way? Absolutely. So, if you're starting fresh and contemplating all of the equipment that you're told that you need to purchase, given the similar prices, investing in a stick blender would probably be the more straightforward choice. However, if you already have an electric hand mixer on hand, it could be a reasonable option to explore, especially if you're comfortable with it taking a little bit longer to come to trace. Now, if you're going out and purchasing all brand new equipment, I think they're about the same cost for a hand mixer versus a stick blender. But if you have a hand mixer already available that you're willing to use for this, it could definitely work for you. I do not take any of my kitchen equipment and my soaping equipment. Those are two separate things. I do not take them back and forth. My soap equipment is my soap equipment. I don't use it for anything for my household. And the same with my household stuff is for my house. I don't take my stuff back and forth. Um, and I knew that from the beginning. I didn't want to be using my equipment back and forth. So what I do in my kitchen stays in my kitchen, and what I do with my soap stays with my soap. And so that was another reason that this kind of was something that I considered before starting was I didn't have a stick blender to use for soaping whenever I first started. And I really debated, do I even want to make soap or not make soap? And so having a hand mixer, this could definitely be a way to gain your entry. I did notice that once I added the fragrance oil, it did go ahead and come to trace a little bit easier. Again, it stays pretty fluid. It doesn't thicken up too much. It did take a lot longer to blend it. I tried to leave as much of that footage in. I don't believe I cut any of the mixing part out of this video so you could see just how long it did take. And again, it's not a long time. It's just longer than a stick blender would have taken. I did try to thicken this up to just see what all the hand mixer would do, what it would be capable of doing, and it did thicken up. Again, it pours beautifully. And again, I could have done multiple colors. It did work out great. But again, with this, I just wanted to keep it simple, and that's why I only done the one color. I didn't try to do any kind of swirls or any extra pours. It was just a straightforward batch. And get it all scraped out of there. So hopefully I answered some of your questions as to whether or not this worked. The hand mixer, I was concerned also about it getting hot. And like I said, I just done the one batch. I felt of it. It didn't feel that it overheated or anything of that nature, which was another concern that I had, if it would be able to handle making the soap or not. It worked great. This isn't any kind of a fancy hand mixer. It's just a cheap mixer that I had. But yes, you absolutely can. Um, again, whether you should or not, that's a personal choice that you need to decide. Just because you may think that the hand mixer is something that you readily have available that you would want to try this with, would it work? Yes, it would work. If you think a stick blender is the only way, there's multiple ways of doing this. As long as you're researching, make sure that you're doing safe practices. Okay, so we're going to give it our 24 hours. And here is what the soap looks like. Again, they're just beautiful bars. I did not do the water discount, so they are just a little bit on the soft side, but that has to do with the water, because I normally do a discount, but for this I did not. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all enjoy learning something, and I appreciate you joining me today. Remember, stay clean, stay creative, stay rooted. Y'all have a great day. Bye.